everybody? Welcome back to another episode of the Bird Flock podcast. We decided to have two episodes this week, and we're going to drop one with an interview, one we haven't done in a while. We figured, Father's Day this past weekend, we're not going to interview a player. We're going to interview a player's father. So we'd like to introduce Nick Richards, father of former first overall pick, Tyrell Richards. Nick, first off, thanks for joining us, man.
Thanks for having me, man. Thanks
Uh,
for
we're just gonna kick it off more about you before we jump into Tyrell. So obviously, for people that don't know, you're not no stranger to football yourself. Obviously, you played in the CFL, and now you're coaching over there at Football North up here in Canada. So, I just want to give you like the time to explain what Football North is to the people that don't know.
Well, I have to update you too. I have since left Football North. But what it is and what it was intended to be was a platform to help Canadian kids stay home and still get exposure against some of the better teams in the U.S. In and out of throughout Ohio. We did play IMG and St. Francis, which is one of the top, I would say top five schools in the U.S. And the kids got a lot of good things out of it. We did put approximately about 30 plus kids into NCAA system, but we put well over 80 kids into the youth sports system. And I mean, kids like Clark Barnes, Deontay Knight, Ify, who just was drafted by Toronto. And we have a plethora of other kids that will be coming out soon.
Yeah, and obviously great work to keep, Canadians inside Canada and give them the benefit to even pursue NCAA. So I know you said you're not there anymore, but how did you even get into that?
Well, how it happened, there was a strike that was going on here in Ontario with the public school board and the Catholic school board. So there wasn't going to be football for the kids. And Larry Justanis, who I had met back up with, at that point, my son was on Team Ontario and was picked to be on Team Canada football. So it was unknown up to that point. And then Larry reached out because he trained my cousin who ran the fastest 40 in CFL Combine history after Stephen Turner. So my wife was like, you need to call him and get Tyrell hooked up with him so he can drop his time, right? So before I could call him, he called me, and we started talking. And we were gonna put together like a travel team. In that time that there wasn't gonna be school, sports. But as it got close to the school date, I guess they ratified their agreements and the teachers came back, so there was football. So what we ended up doing, the next year we took 10 kids to the Hun School down in New Jersey there, I think. And that's pretty much where Tyrell got noticed by Syracuse. And we weren't going to Syracuse that year, but the coaches latched on and they were like, you need to come out here to Syracuse. If the boy does what he did today, it's going to be a happy weekend or something. So we changed our plans, went to Syracuse, and Tyrell dominated the camp. And from that point, the rest is history. They gave him a scholarship, and that's where he attended.
Yeah, and then not only did that obviously help him out, but obviously, I guess learning from you, a guy who also played in the CFL and was obviously a coach. How much did Tyrell kind of come after you and pick your brain all the time growing up? And did you ever actually like coach him specifically, or just like off the field coaching, stuff like that?
No, I did coach him in summer football, but it started in soccer because I hate to say it, but Tyrell was a soccer phenom, man. I had hope. Um, uh, he would have ended up over in Europe playing soccer. I mean, he could kick, he could score with both left and right, right, with ease.
Hmm.
Like like to watch him was like he was. It looked like he was skating on the field. Uh, it was just something to watch, right? And I mean, everybody, all his coaches, and um, they expected big things out of him, but he kind of fell out of the love of the sport. I don't know if there wasn't enough contact for him, or he wanted to do well. He always, like, I remember as a little kid in elementary, I think a teacher asked him, "What do you want to do when you grow up? What's your dream?" And they ask all the kids that.
Hmm.
They draw the pictures and they cut them out. Well, he drew uh, an NFL football player wearing number 88, and he said, "I'm going to play professional football, yada yada." You know what I mean? That was, I think, grade 6 or grade 5. You know what I mean? So I guess it was there, but I
Hmm.
kind of wanted to steer him away from football um, because I know all the knocks and hits you got to take. So I wanted him
Yeah.
to avoid that a little bit. Um, but anyways, it came down to it. Football kind of went out. He went out. He started playing um, recreation football here in Brampton. Um, I, I think he was about 8, 7 or 8, maybe 9. He was small and young, but he was really good. So then that led us to put him into the rep side of it, and he showed out. He did really well. Uh, Things were going well for him. He was still playing soccer as well. Because football only lasted, it's summer football, right?
Yeah.
Put him back into soccer just to keep his skills set up. And, we figured whatever he has for soccer is going to help him football wise, especially with his feet, right? So he, like I said, played rep football, but then I got in a really bad car accident. So I kind of scrabbled me for 2 years. Like I lost the ability to finish my sentences, talk,
Okay.
read, um, you know. But anyways, so I kind of banned him from football. So he was allowed to play soccer, and he did, but you could see the joy wasn't there. You know what I mean? And then
Hmm.
I guess he was having secret negotiations with my wife at home. And she came to me on his behalf and was like, I understand, um, but this is his journey and that was your journey. You know what I mean? And the way she put it, I was like, you know what? Yes. So, yes, he can go back to football. So he did go back, but when he went back, he was like the younger of the two age groups that were
Hmm.
together, and he hadn't hit his growth spurt yet. So Tyrell was like one of the smaller kids now, whereas before he was like, on par with everybody else. And hitting all, seeing the big kids that are in there, hit their puberty strides, so to speak. Um, he was kind of a little tentative at the time. And I just remember taking him to the field one day and just because I knew he could hit and hitting just a frame of mind. Um, So I kind of put on my old helmet I had and an old pair of shoulder pads. He had his stuff on, and I pretended to be a ball carrier on my knees. And what I said was, okay, what I want you to do is break, and then I want you to come downhill, and I want you to hit me, right? I'm going to lower myself slowly, and you can, I walked him through the hitting technique, and I said, this is what you want to do. Well, we did a couple, and I was like, okay, need you to, you know, I think it was because I was his dad. He was like, I'm not gonna hit him.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? So I was like, no, Tyler, you gotta hit me. You gotta hit me. Well, let me tell you, he came downhill and hit me, and my head snapped back, and I was like, yeah. Like, seeing the little stars, and I was like, yeah, okay, you're ready to go, buddy. Let me tell you, he went back, and from that point on, he was a hitting phenom. Like, it didn't matter how big you were, he was going to run through you, right?
Mm-hmm.
And he also took that to the soccer field, which isn't really
Probably not too great to be doing.
But you know what I mean? He was always like, well, it was in the rules. I'm winning that 50-50 ball. That's mine. You can wait for me to do what I'm going to, so yeah, super proud of him. Like I said, he went back. He did great things. And then, he went on to high school, grade 10. I think, it was a small little grade 10. He was a DB. They did well. They won ROPSA, which is like the regional school, like all the schools. They won it all for their age group, which was great. But he was still small. So then after that year, after his grade 10 year, he went to the varsity team at St. Roch in Brampton here. And, at 5'6" or 5'7", it's not very tall.
No. You
know what I mean? And so his skill set was good because his feet were good from other sports, soccer. And, he was a little upset because it was like, I'm not starting, I'm not playing. Like, they're just kind of, you know what I mean? He was unknown.
Mm-hmm.
And then I do remember he started the school year at around 5'7", because I remember he was the same height as some of the other kids that used to come into our house. Our house was like an open home where all the kids came and hung out with Tyrell. So I remember he was sleeping a lot. And we were like, is he okay? Like whatever. But like I'm talking long hours. And I just remember one day I was in the kitchen, and I think I was making myself a sandwich. And Tyrell walks on his toes, always has. You know what I mean? So I was bent over, and he came downstairs, and he was like, hey, Dad, something. And I turned, and I looked. And I kind of, jokingly shot my arm back and said, get off your toes, man. Like, you know what I mean? Like, peering down on me. And then when I turned and looked, I'm like, oh, my God. Like, I yelled up for his mom. Like, you got to come down here and see this. I can't believe this. Like, he grew, no word of a lie. I think it was about 8 inches. Yeah. So
wow.
Beginning of school in grade 11, to just after the March break, he went from 5'7" to about 6 foot. You know what I mean? Like, we were just like, what the? And you know what I mean? So after that little growth spurt, he went out, tried out for Team Ontario, like I said earlier. Mm-hmm. He made it. Went on to play. He got ranked on the CFC top 100. And then school started taking notice of him, right? So he goes back to his high school, and now he's doing, like, everyone, the coaches are just like, oh my God, like, we're going to put you here, we're going to put you there. You know what I mean? He had to work really hard because it was those same coaches that didn't want to pay him any attention.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? But now he's ranked and doing good things with Team O. Now he's like the guy.
Yeah, he's the guy that they want to put everywhere.
Yes, you know what I mean. So, anyways, he did that. I think I'm all over the place, but so grade 12, grade 12, he had a grade 12. He made Team O, made Team Canada. I think he went down to Arlington, Texas, played there. The first year, I think with Team O, they didn't win, but the next year, I think it was Team Canada. I think they won his age group, won down there in Texas. He also played 7-on-7, which is flag football or touch football. His team ended up winning the Pylon tournament under Coach Cannon here in Brampton, and they ended up qualifying for the tournament down in Texas. So they got to, go into AT&T Stadium, see all the stalls, see where the players were sitting there. They weren't supposed to sit in the seats, but he got to sit in the cubby.
Yeah.
And we, like I said, me and Larry, because this is all the around the same time that the school stuff was happening. So Larry had said he was going to start a school, right? And I was going to be the DC. He's the head coach. And we were going to be playing in the U.S. So Tyrell at this time had committed to Carleton, right? So mom was happy because he's our last kid and he's going off to university. So it's fantastic, So all's good. I'm going to be coaching kids in high school down to Mississauga, and Tyrell's going to be at Carleton. Well, Tyrell came up to me after that tournament where they qualified for the Pylon tournament and said, "Dad, I want to go to your school because I want to go to the U.S." He hadn't got a scholarship yet, right? He goes, "I want to go down to your school. I want to go to your school because these Americans were playing, and they're no better than I am." So I was like, "Well, bro," I said, "that's a heavy duty conversation you got to have with your mom because I'm out." You know what I mean? So I think he did sit his mom down and said his aspirations were to go back to high school at a new school so he could play in the U.S. Well, she cried, right? Because, here you are, you're going to university right now, and now you're saying you're going to take a, victory lap high school at a new school where, unknown, unproven.
Yeah.
But she came to the school, and I think the principal kind of settled her, and she saw that it could be a good thing. And just before we started the school in July, I think that year, that's when he got the scholarship from the Huns, Syracuse. Right, so he was our first official offered kid.
That's crazy.
Yeah.
That's crazy for your son to be the first one, and you kind of started up from the ground. That's amazing, actually.
Yeah.
But just moving on to Syracuse, and what was it like just watching your kid ball out in the States? And like Syracuse is not like a big time school that they always show on TV, blah, blah, blah. So what was it like to have to constantly try and find to watch your kid play or stuff like that?
Well, to be honest, my wife's amazing. We didn't miss many of his games. We went to all his home games. And then when I was in the U.S. At schools coaching, my wife would drive down, see my game, and then we would drive to wherever he was playing, Boston College or, North Carolina or wherever. I think the only one we didn't go to was Clemson and Florida, of course. You know what I mean? So we didn't miss many of his games. And just watching him ball out at that level was something else. Because I still remember his first game. It was down at Western uh, Western Michigan, right? Because they played a
Yeah.
outside conference game. He's on kickoff, and like I said, he loves hitting people. He runs down on kickoff like a bullet, and the guy who caught the ball, his blocker came up to hit Tyrell, but Tyrell got the better of him. And I mean, I haven't seen a hit that big, and I mean, I've seen a lot of football. I was, proud dad, like, yeah, jumping around. But then when we look, the kid's on the ground, the other kid, right? And kind of, sobered you up a little bit. I mean, the kid ended up okay, but I mean, they did take him off via ambulance, you know what I mean? And at that point, like Tyrell I think he won hammer of the game that game for Syracuse. And then it just went it just kept going on and on like that. So Tyrell has a lot of clips of smoking people on kickoff, punt. We had a lot of even the coach's daughter, because this was out of the coach's mouth. The coach's daughter says, "I can't wait to watch 42 play," because it's always something exciting out there. You know what I mean? And that was a huge kudo to what he did out there on specials. So he kind of got moved around a lot because the linebacker coach that picked him up, before Tyrell went to the school, he ended up taking a job somewhere else. So Tyrell kind of got lost in the shuffle, so to speak.
Yeah, kind of had to rebuild his way back up.
Yes. He was 6'2" when he left. He grew 2 more inches down there. So he ended up being 6'4". He was around 220. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Running with the DBs. I remember when we went down there, Coach Babers was like, "Oh my God, your kid can run." Blah, 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 blah. Like sprinting with the DBs and not behind them, with them up front. You know what I mean? So we assumed he was going to be possibly like a nickel guy or up there in the charts, but for whatever reason, the coach there, Tyrell wasn't his guy, so he ended up getting moved into the D line group. Now, as you know, U.S. O line, they average 3 something, right? I mean, they're big boys, so I'd always talk to the D line coach, and I'd be like, yeah, he's like, I'll look after your son. I'll look after your son. Like, it's great, but he's severely undersized to be taken. But he did his job. Like when he got on, he did what he was supposed to do. He held the alignment up and, made his tackles and, pressures on the quarterback. So it was great to watch. But, it was a little disheartening at first because we had all the coaches down there that loved him. They would come up and say, "Your son should be playing linebacker, should be really starting for us." Because Isaiah Simmons, if you know, whenever they were to play Clemson, I think he was at Clemson. Yeah,
he was at Clemson.
When they were to play Clemson or any type of versatile play like that, they used Tyrell as the show guy. Right? So if you have that guy in your stable, you really should use him the way other people are using him. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
But it didn't happen. I mean, he, held his own. He kept fighting. But then ultimately, as you know, he had enough and opted to leave. But because of the COVID year, with a lot of the courses being pass-fail, not marks.
Yeah.
Right. He didn't have enough transferable credits. So at that point, he didn't know what he was going to do. He thought he was going to go over to Europe. and have to, be in Europe to continue playing. You know what I mean? Because lots of schools called. They called me.
Mm-hmm.
You know what I mean? Oh, we'd like to bring you in, blah, 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 blah. But then when the credits didn't go, it kind of all went quiet, right? So we didn't want him to go over to Europe. We didn't want him to go to Germany at the time. I think it was Poland, sorry. We didn't want him to go to Poland. There was a lot of stuff going on, at the time, it was still the rumblings about Russia and a little bit of fighting and so on and so forth. So like, we'd rather you stay here. So that took a bit to convince him, but ultimately he made the decision to stay, and he started training again and found the love for football again. And then we assumed that he would have been just entered into the draft, like automatically, but that's not how it worked, right? You had to tell the CFL you were going to be in or whatever. So a buddy of mine called me, said they've been looking for him and blah 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 blah. Is he? And I said, well, I sat him down. He said, yeah, he's ready to go. So I mean, he trained hard. He trained really hard. He worked with Larry Justanis. Larry helped him with his running and his plyometric lifting and so on and so forth. And then he went out, and before he went, he said, Dad, I'm going to do D-line. I'm going to do linebacker. I'm going to do the DB session. I'm going to do it all. They're going to see, like, you know what I mean? So we were watching him and talking to him on the phone in between, and he did the D-line in the morning, did the linebacker session, and then I think a couple of the coaches kind of said, you've done enough. Like, do anything else, but he was like, when I picked him up that day, I remember he was like, oh, stuff. I was like, well, you did enough, man.
Yeah.
You did quite a bit, because I'm not sure that's been done before.
Look, he definitely did enough because the team traded up to number 1 to snag him, right?
Yeah. Which was a shock for us, because for all intents and purposes, we were told that, it was going to be Edmonton. Okay. And he was going to Edmonton up until the 11th hour, so to speak. But then it went quiet, right? And we were like, what's going on? The night of the draft, and he ended up getting I think in a box a Montreal hat came, which we found odd. A Toronto hat came, like, you know what I mean? And we were like, what's going on here? And then, ultimately, the phone call from Kahari Jones, right? Sent him over the moon, right? Like, he did the dance through the house, right? So it was
Did you guys only find out then that he was getting drafted? You only found out when they made that call to put
when they made the call. Like, it was assumed, everyone was like, you're going to be the number 1 guy. You're going to be the number 1 guy. But then all of a sudden, Edmonton went quiet.
Yeah.
Right. And I was like, have you heard anything? Like, are you going out there? Are they going to unveil you? Like, you know what I mean? Here's our first round guy. We picked them. Yeah. Welcome to the team, whatever. Nothing, right? So we're just like, okay. And in my head, I'm like, okay. Everything's good. Everything's good. You know what I mean? And but I'm like, that's odd. And then to receive hats from places you don't know. But he did have a lot of, like, leading up to it, he did have a lot of calls with Montreal, right? And again, which I found odd. I don't know what was going on, but he had a great call. I remember Danny Machocha had a call with him, and it still sticks out in my head. Asked him a question. So, who was the best player at the combine? Right. So, Tyrell's not I'm the best. I'm the greatest. He was just kind of like, well, the the best player was such and such and such. I don't remember who he said. One of the four brothers, I think, or something.
Yeah.
And Danny's like, really? Like it wasn't. He goes, no. Well, I mean, outside of myself, like you asked, like I'm just looking at. I didn't think you meant me. Kind of thing, you know what I mean? And then so he was like, okay. So if you were a GM, who would you think was the best player at the thing? So Tyrell took it literally, like, well, I'm a GM, so I'm there as the GM. And he picked a bunch of kids and ranked them, right? And he goes, well, how come you're not in the mix? He goes, but you said I was a GM. So I would be the GM. I wouldn't be there
Be
taking
playing.
part. It was funny. Like, I mean, they had a great rapport. Yeah, it was really nice to see. But still, you know what I mean? Everything was pointing still to Edmonton at that time. And yeah, but like I said, Edmonton went cold. So I just figured it was just something that was going on. But then when it started, and I mean, he was nervous. He sat on the couch. It was just after COVID. So we stayed home as a family with him.
Mm-hmm.
And still remember he was on the couch. He was saying he wasn't nervous, but I could tell he was a little bit nervous. You know what I mean? And then it came in with the first pick. Montreal moved up, blah, 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 blah. And then the call from Kahari, and the rest is history. You know what I mean? And we were really appreciative for what Montreal did. And he just wants to show out for you guys. He loves the city.
Yeah, I mean, damn, we're excited to have him, man. Me and Dawson, I'm pretty sure you've heard us talk about him, man. We're excited to have him. The versatility that he brings to this team is unmatched, I think, and definitely excited to have him out here.
That is awesome. That is awesome.
Yeah,
I mean,
definitely
last year was a
games too, eh? Definitely
pardon me?
gotta come see you around some games too.
Yes, we've been there at I don't think we've missed the game yet.
There you go.
You know what I mean? This week we'll be in Hamilton watching him play. And, last time he was in Hamilton, he had a good game. Yeah, I'm just looking forward to good things. We're just trying to telling them to keep looking after the small things, because the big things are going to take after themselves, right? Take care of themselves, and he just got to stay healthy, and he's doing that, and he just wants to show you guys that he is everything as promised. Last year was just a blip on the radar, but this year, yeah, he wants to do good things. He really wants to get out there and play, like all aspects, specials, actually on defense. You know what I mean? He's kind of a big kid. He's a very big kid. I mean, 250. Yeah, he's beyond me. Like, my days of playing with him are, long over, right? Like, yeah, it's one of those things.
Look, man, I mean, we gotta wrap it up here, but I just want to say, like, this was a great episode. Just hearing you give the whole story about him, and it really caught the episode exactly how we wanted of the Father's Day episode. So we really appreciate you coming on. But I do have one question for you quickly.
Okay.
Just quickly, it's a what, yes or no answer. Do you
All right.
believe that this team is built to win a Grey Cup this year?
Yes.
There you go. There you go.
Yeah.
You heard from one of the players' dads. I'm sure Tyrell's, told you all the ins and outs of what's going on with the team. But like I said, just thanks for hopping on with us, and I'm sure it won't be the last time we're talking to you.
Beautiful. Thanks for having me, man. I really appreciate it. You guys keep doing the great job you're doing, man, because your podcast is fantastic.
I appreciate that. Thank you very much.